WandaVision. WandaVision is an action fantasy TV miniseries streaming on Disney Plus that takes place directly after the events of Avengers Endgame. WandaVision blends the style of classic sitcoms with the MCU, in which Wanda Maximoff and Vision, two superpowered beings, live in their ideal suburban lives to suspect that everything is not what it seems. From the visionary illustrated comic book mind of Stan Lee, executively produced by Kevin Feige, created by Jackie Schaefer and directed by Matt Shakman, starring Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda Maximoff and Paul Bettany as Vision. And guys, if you are new here on this channel, please make sure that you subscribe and turn on your bell notifications. Now, let's take a deep dive into WandaVision, shall we? So, the first thing that I will say is that I believe that WandaVision has created one of the best on-screen relationships that we have seen from the MCU. And Elizabeth Olsen's performance in this show really is second to none. You are the body of my wires, the blood and the bone that I created. You are my sadness and my hope, but mostly you are my love. I mean, it doesn't get any more poignant than that. And then you have Paul Bettany in this show, who left no stone unturned as far as I'm concerned. Elizabeth Olsen, they are both now synonymous with being those characters. When you think about these characters, you think about their performances, you know, and for that to be the lasting impression is really is astounding. Just when you thought that you couldn't get any more attached to these characters, you know, this show just comes out and subverts your expectations and really does, in a way, reinvent them and build upon their relationship. I will go on my shield to say this, that episode 8 is probably one of the best backstories, first person ideology stories that we have ever gotten from a protagonist. You know, and there are revelations about Wanda Maximoff that, you know, just when we thought that the story with her couldn't get any more tragic, you know, you see how going into episode 8, when we see the family and that they, you know, the way that they would bond with each other, that they would sit and they would watch sitcoms and, you know, as a family, and then that ties the narrative and the concepts of the show, that, you know, the alternate reality in a sense is a part of Wanda's trauma. You know, that's where it's all stemmed from, you know, and I thought that was really clever. And I think it goes kind of over people's heads a little bit that, you know, with Wanda, there was a time period where she was being enslaved to under the guidance of Hydra, you know, being experimented on, and so that was good to explore in that avenue there. And we also see when Wanda was in a low point, when she was in a new country, she felt alienated, and one of the few people that actually reached out and engaged in the conversation was Vision, and you know, that's where we got that brilliant line, "What is grief if not love persevering?" I mean, that is some end of times Shakespearean stuff right there, isn't it? The thing that I would like to address with WandaVision was that going into the show, I did have my preconceived ideas as to what I thought could be happening in this show. I mean, I was totally wrong, but I had the idea that possibly I believed that this alternate reality of the Hex was created in between Infinity War and Endgame, and somehow WandaVision was, you know, in some kind of paranormal way, contacting the people that are dead, you know, because she, you know, she's got this reality warping ability, and I thought that she would be communicating with the dead to then relay information back to Endgame. I mean, we know that now. That I was completely wrong, because the events of this show take place directly after Endgame, so it wouldn't be before. But gotta give it. You got to give it a. You got to give it a shot. And when this show came out, there was a lot of people that were, during the first 2 to 3 episodes, a lot of people were jumping the gun and they were saying, "Oh, it's not entertaining. It's not," But I think for anyone that is into the fundamentals of storytelling that involve high concept, that involve hidden exposition, it's not really going to gripe on you that much. Practically, if you're somebody that watches Christopher Nolan, so to say, I'd say 90% of those people would enjoy this show because it's all built on its own concept. And I think because with myself, because I'm used to that type of storytelling, that kind of outside of the thinking when it comes to film, and you're basing it on your own interpretation. I didn't feel undermined with the time there, I mean, other people did. And I think it just goes to show how really with the MCU, we've not really seen a high concept fantasy with hidden subtext exposition. And I think this was the perfect time to utilize that way of writing for WandaVision, and I think that it was like a welcomed culture shock for everyone. It's not every day just explosions and X, Y, and Z. But I think that with me, if it was the case with me, I think that I could have possibly enjoyed the show even more. I mean, don't get me wrong, I did, but if I was watching it in a binge kind of theory of one after the other, I would be completely fine with it, I think where the level of intrigue comes into this is when people are not used to this type of storytelling, and then those people are having these conversations with other people that don't quite understand it, and you see the theory videos and all the Easter eggs. What does this mean? Why did she say that? And that is what built the level of intrigue for those fans, But if you're somebody that, if you're somebody that watches Africanoski or Christopher Nolan, it's, it's not going to really tickle your chin, I mean, you admire it and you're going to see where it's going to go, but you're not going to be answering questions left, right, and center. What I now want to talk about is now some of the discrepancies that I have with WandaVision. Sadly, not everything can be perfect, and I'm not, nothing. Just because something isn't perfect doesn't mean it isn't good. And some of these points that I want to make is with the character of Agnes the Heartless, Agatha. Now, there's something strange. I can't really put my finger on it. And when I talk to people about what is it that I didn't really relate to with that character, was that I feel like Catherine Hahn has this interpretation of the character, and then you have the creators who have their interpretation, and they're trying to meddle out these ideas. And when it comes to the acting, I felt really hard to engage with her, because there's a level to her that feels like she's a pantomime. But for me, she's already summoning powers and using kind of witchcraft, right? So I don't understand why everything was in her performance just exaggerated, so to say. When She's already got powers and this and that. I mean, when I think about acting on screen, I look at it as kind of minuscule. You know, and when there was moments where Catherine Hahn was being minuscule and just being just directly sinister, and she wasn't putting on this facade, I connected with the character more that way. You know, I think it's a case of apples and oranges when it comes to that character. You know, because it's not like the performance completely just brings everything down, but it's something that I did notice. Not to say that the performance is bad. I just feel like it should be one way or the other. It should either be the director should get behind Catherine Hahn's performance, or the director should be saying, no, I'm calling the shots. This is how I'm going to direct you. It just feels like it feels like there's an amalgamation of too many ideas with her character, in my opinion. And again, not to say it's a bad show. I felt, and another point is that I felt like with episode 8, was this episode 8? It was the beginning of episode 8. We got a little bit of backstory with Agatha. Now, again, amongst many conversations with my friends, is that I'm happy that the show went there. I'm happy that they went there. And if anyone that knows me and you've watched this channel over the last 2 years, I'm a big fan of backstories. I'm a big fan of first-person ideologies. I don't believe that anyone just wakes up one day and they are the way that they are. I just think it's impossible. If you're writing a serial killer or just a straight up psychopath, then yeah, you can essentially write that character in third person. But if it's a character that's got a certain motivation, a certain purpose, and then there's an element of them that is three-dimensional, I don't believe people just wake up and then they are the way that they are. I just don't think that's right. And it's extremely hard for an audience to engage with. But what I noticed with Agatha's character, she doesn't actually really, when you boil it down, she doesn't really have a purpose. All we understand is that in the Salem, Massachusetts, in that time period, she took a book that she shouldn't have taken. Why did she take it? I can't be the only one that wants to be asking these questions, you know. Why does she want to take it? And it leads me to think that she just took the book because she wants to just because she wants power. Is that good writing? You know, I'll let you be the judge of that. I'm just pointing it out, you know. And it's kind of like, you know, her arc doesn't feel like it really has any gravity to it, you know. Which then, after that point, I was kind of thinking in the back of my head, maybe I could get a little bit more backstory going into episode 9, and they didn't, but instead they showed when White Vision met Virtual Vision, we got the flashbacks of Infinity War. I'm thinking, you know, in that time period, you could have done a lot more to give a little bit more substance to Agatha's character. You know, we know, I mean, you know, the MCU's made $23 billion at the box office. You know, I think people have seen Infinity War and Endgame. How did Agatha get inside the Hex? Was she a civilian? Why wasn't there a backstory as to how she got there in the first place? She just kind of appears and we just take her for face value. How did White Vision in episode 9, the finale, how did he get inside the Hex? We're not shown. Petro Maximoff is Ralph Boner. The real kick in the nuts. I mean, that's all kind of shits and giggles, and no doubt I think that the MCU will flush out that character in the future. Now, with the discrepancies out the way, let's talk about the backstory with Monica Rambeau and with episode 4, it perfectly encapsulated how harrowing her story is and how flawed she is, and it's the episode shows from her perspective where was she during the blip, and she was there by her mother's bedside, and obviously at that period of time 5 years passed away, and as she was blipped, her mum passed away from a terminal illness. So she wasn't there to, you know, to be there with her final moments with her mum, and that was quite, you know, it's quite sad. And you know, I think the show perfectly showed the hysteria of the blip, of people coming back and just like, what is going on kind of thing. Great backstory, and the show does a great job of then tying back to the end events of episode 3. And I loved how, going from Darcy looking at the TV monitor, the screen and its aspect ratio changes, and it kind of gives the illusion of Wanda controlling everything, and you know, and people's perception on what they are seeing, which was a nice little touch. And you know, I know it's weird things like in episode 3, like the glitches, you know, people be talking and like they'd move backwards and they're over there, and it's like, I thought at points that my TV was broken. I was like, well, what's all this about? And also a good point to raise is that in the episode Breaking the Fourth Wall, when we see the audience, well, asking her, Wanda, do you deserve this? Believe it or not, that was actually Agatha. I heard it from Heavy Spoilers in New Rockstar, and it was Agatha, but they got her to talk, but with her voice being lowered down. And again, it just goes to show Agatha controlling things inside of the Hex. I was also pleasantly surprised to see Julian Hilliard from The Haunting of Hill House in this show. He played Luke, and good to see him embrace this role and take it on. And also, I think that with WandaVision, they've done a really good job of reinventing Darcy and Jimmy Woo. We no longer see Darcy under the wing of Jane Foster, and she's now coming into her own, you know, being her own person, and it really engaging. And I love the camaraderie between Jimmy Woo, Darcy, and Monica, and you know, their chemistry was all really, really well done. And another interesting thing with WandaVision is that it's all based, you know, it's all based on the perspectives of heroes and villains, and Jeremy touched upon this. You know, we got Wanda, who's severely grieving, and she essentially takes hostage an entire city, an entire town, sorry, and we relate to her because we know the journey. We know at every stage of her life that she's lost somebody, you know, and we are rooting for her in a way to live this make-believe life, even though she's hurting thousands of people and controlling their minds and not allowing them to live freely. And it's also explained in the show that from time to time, when the reality glitches, the civilians feel the same pain that Wanda feels, you know, and, you know, in a way it doesn't get much deeper than that. I think one of the characters stated that it feels like they're drowning, you know, some very sharp dialogue there. And when you look on the flip side, the other side of the coin with Hayward, you know, the entire time we're watching this show, we look at him, we're like, this guy is a complete arsehole. That's what everyone is thinking, but he's not. In the perspective of the civilians, you know, when they've all come out of that hex and they realise what Hayward was doing, I think there will be a majority that will actually think, no, he's a hero, you know. And that whole thing of how he lied to Sword and said that Wanda had taken Vision's body, and essentially now Wanda is now a terrorist. You know, that was a pretty shitty thing to do. And it comes out, and it turns out to be that with episode 8, with Wanda's backstory, is that she created Vision from her soul. You know, so yeah, Hayward was talking a lot of smack. And just to round everything up, the last shot that we see of Wanda and Vision resembles the time when we first saw them in Infinity War in Scotland. And if you were to do a frame by frame look of those moments, it would look exactly the same. I pretty much assume that it is. So guys, to round this up, and my review and the rating for WandaVision for this series, I'm going to go with an 8.5. I think that Elizabeth Olsen was absolutely electric in this role. You know, if there's talk of her being nominated, I'm all for it. She absolutely smashed it. And Paul Bettany, amazing. Just the last moments we see of Wanda and Vision feels a human emotion, and a tear drops down his eye. I mean, I think that touched everyone in the soul, and it really just goes to show just how truly strong and beautiful their relationship was. Even if he is just a robot, you know, in all retrospect, he should mean nothing to us, but we feel the way that we do because his character is really well written. So my rating would be an 8.5 for WandaVision, and I look forward to where these characters are going to go in the future. We know that with White Vision, with the interaction with Virtual Vision, he's been given essentially his memories back to him. So it's going to be interesting moving forward. So guys, make sure that you check out the GoFundMe pages for the independent films down below. Make sure that you donate. And guys, I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Cheers.